telecommunications.
Mm-hmm.
So for that, I want to discuss their common question is like, tell me about yourself, right? As a ETL tester,
Mm-hmm.
what's the responsibilities for my recent project?
Mm-hmm.
No, that's what I want to know that. And like while you were testing, what's the major defects you found in your previous projects,
Okay,
and what?
one is about the current project roles and responsibilities what you performed. Another thing is about the common defects or the major defects, common defects, and yeah, what else?
What are the conflicts between developer and you faced with the developer? So
Okay, conflicts with the developers, like how generally
mhm.
conflict.
How do you handle that
How do you
situation?
handle it? Okay, how do you?
Handle those
How do
situations?
you? Okay. Hmm. Hmm. Else?
What are the major like complex mapping you previous you tested, like
Complex mapping tested. Okay. Hmm.
uh, um, do you have any experience on agile methodology and like common questions about HPQC questions, like quality center? Do
Uh, Agile and common questions on the HP Quality Center or an ALM, right?
mhm, right, and BI related questions, like
BI,
business data is right.
BI related questions. So when you say BI, like what, where specifically you're focusing? It's like
Uh,
about the list of dimensions and facts and all those.
Fact and dimension modeling and history loading, like
Related questions, okay. BI related questions about facts,
yeah,
dimensions, history load.
that, mhm.
History load, okay. What else?
and incremental loads,
Okay, incremental load. Right. What else?
mm, and like common questions like SCD type 1 and SCD type 2 frequent questions, right, Karthik?
Okay, that those things and all we already discussed in the class, right? Okay.
Yes, yes, yeah.
Okay, what else you want?
And like healthcare domain, can you give me some examples also if you get a
Okay, it's more on the when you say healthcare, you want on the healthcare insurance or it's only on the hospital management or
hospital management?
okay. It's not related to insurance, but I see your projects which contains healthcare insurance here. So when I go for column,
That is not a healthcare insurance, Karthik. This is a specialization of healthcare supplements like medical and hospital equipment things. That's the
business,
one. That is this is a limited brand.
Cardinal Health.
Yes, Cardinal Health.
Okay, so this is not related to these things, but I see here as which all talks about leading health insurance company, and it you say that you are leading on the claims, medical, dental, and pharmacy vision related claims from the different vendors, and routes the claims to nightly batch system. So, this, see, this is what talks about health insurance, Cardinal Health.
Oh, yeah.
And if
Yeah.
this there is a spelling mistake, you can correct it. It is actually Altas, right? So that is also correct. Altas Limited. So yeah, on this healthcare, basically I'll just give you healthcare insurance, basically about the cardinal. But in your current project, you are currently working on the Warner telecables, right? Warner cable, Time Warner.
Right. Right. Time Warner cable.
Okay. So this is Time Warner cable, and then this is a telecommunication one. So basically, let's talk with it. I mean, anything else you wanted to discuss in this?
Uh, uh, Please suggest, Karthik, like more on interview side, they're asking like testing these scenarios and more on SQL side, right?
Yes.
So,
So basically, as an ETL tester, when you even start the preparation, so our recommendation would be about the understanding a complete SQL. So basically, when you talk about SQL, they'll stretch on joins and aggregate functions, and you need to know about the complete single row functions, basically all those, and subqueries and set operators and the constraints, constraints, what is the referential integrity and all those, and the difference between views, materialized views, what is a metadata tables or a data dictionary tables, and analytical functions. These things also you need to know about how to use a rank and dense rank. Okay. And probably yeah, this will help you to understand the SQL first. And also meanwhile you need to also know about the little bit of Unix commands, since you already trained on Informatica development, so you know how to use the WinSCP, and you know how to use a putty for transferring the files from one, I mean your local machine to the server, and copying the files from server to this. And you need to understand the basic Unix commands for verifying the files, whether a source file is present before triggering the load. When when your ETL generates the flat file, how do you verify that? How do you copy that and compare? So all these things you need to know. Basically, the Unix commands plays a role in understanding what file is generated by the ETL, and if you want to verify the reject file or a bad file, or when you want to reject the target file which is being generated by the ETL. For all those, we use a Unix command. So you can say that I have an experience of using a putty and WinSCP for handling the Unix server system. You can say that whichever the project I worked with, where the Informatica is completely installed in the Unix server, so I had an experience of using the Unix commands. And as you said again, like when the interviewers start asking, they'll ask the questions on the data warehousing basics. A few things like what is difference between a data mart and the data warehouse, or what kind of architecture is being used, what is a Kimball approach or top down or bottom up approach, and different types of OLAP tools that we have. All these things, probably they'll talk more on the data warehousing basics. And also, they'll talk about the data modeling, as you mentioned, like when you start with the data modeling. In the data modeling part, it is basically about the dimensions and facts. What are the slowly changing dimensions? And it will talk about the what are the different types of facts, what is a star schema, what is a snowflake schema, what is the advantage and disadvantage of star schema and the snowflake schema. All those things basically they will touch on the interviews. Okay, star schema and the snowflake schema. Basically, the next one is about your ETL testing process, common ETL testing, and what are the different types of testing that you perform, and what kind of artifacts that you prepare. Basically, about the test plan, test strategy document, and all these things. Those things you need to know. As you said again, like you need to know about the common defects that will generally occur, and common defects and the challenging tasks. So these are the things that which you need to prepare on. So, and the next one is about the project responsibilities and how what you're doing as a tester and all those. So when I look at your resume to start with the project, so basically I see that here you mentioned it as the QA analyst. So don't mention the position as a QA analyst. Rather, you can probably change it as a senior ETL tester or senior ETL testing analyst or something like that. So you can change it um, to this position. You can modify that. So now, in order to explain about this project, now how you need to go about is first you need to understand the data flow and how this project is actually used by your customer or how this project is actually helping your customer to find out the different things. So if you see that this Warner cable is actually offering the data in a video and voice services to business of all the sizes, and they also have a cell towers and everything. So what I can give you is I can give you a simpler architecture by understanding telecoms from my telecom experience. So you can say that time cable, I mean Warner Cables offers the different services related to the data. I mean like they offer a services like broadband, 3G, 4G services and everything. And also all the service request or the complaints, everything which they will be handled by the separate service team. And all those calls will be recorded in an Avaya system. Avaya is like the call handling system. Suppose let's say you are a customer for a Warner cables and you have an issue with the internet, you actually call the customer care, and all your calls, what time you're calling, which agent has actually handled, and how much time you actually spend with a call representative, how long you were there on the hold, I mean, how long you're there to connect on hold for how long you are on hold to connect to the customer representative. All these things will be recorded in an application, pre-built application called as an Avaya. Okay, so Avaya is like a call recording system, which you can say, and you can say that Warner Cable was having a billing related system where they actually define the different plans and charge the different customers. So this is a billing revenue generated system. You can say that this is as an Oracle BRM. Oracle BRM is actually a telecom related billing and revenue management system. So, which is what is here. And one is you have two transactional systems here. One is a billing related thing, another is related to an Avaya. So you could say that since the billing related system and Avaya system was not storing the historical data, first we used to extract the incremental data. I mean, you can say that Informatica was used as an incremental data to extract the data from your billing and revenue management system and the call recording system, and this data was integrated into the staging database. So since I see that you have used the let's say you have used a Netezza as your target database in your project. If I see here, you say that you have used it as a Netezza. If Netezza is your data warehouse, probably you might have to brush up a little bit on the Netezza side. Okay. Else, you can say if you want to convert that as an Oracle, you can convert and then say that both transactional system and my warehouse is both are on Oracle. So you can say that Informatica version also you can say, let's say Informatica 951 is being used, or the 91 is used as a tool to integrate the data from this. And from the staging, since there were some kind of an operational reports which were required for a commercial customers and the individual customers, we also maintained an ODS which is used for an operational reporting. So if they say that why the ODS is actually being used, see whenever ODS is mainly used again to the generating postpaid bills, prepaid bills whenever the customer requests and all. The ODS is used for generating a billing. I mean billing related things what we have. So when we talk about here also, it's being used as an Informatica is used as a tool and then did it. And when you go here, let's say we have actually built two data marts. One is related to the revenue, or you can call it as a sales and revenue data mart. and another is basically the about the customer management or customer care analytics. You can say that how the different customers are actually handled by the call representatives. So that data is being integrated into your call related metrics. So this is what this is another data mart which is actually being built. So you can say that the sales and revenue data mart is actually used by the high level business group for finding out the total sales across the different line of businesses, and profit analysis, loss analysis across the regions, how it is there. And this call revenue data mart is actually used to find out the the number of calls or number of complaints that you have received from the different regions, and how the and to measure the quality of the to measure the performance of the sales representatives or a call representatives, all these things. So what I'm saying is this data mart, whatever is being built, is used for a regional profit analysis. You can say that profit analysis by profit and revenue analysis by, so you can say that time, profit and revenue analysis by time. Let's say the, you can call it as a region on the product. So all these things, you can say that this is what is being used at the high level. And uh, and the next one is, this is actually used to call revenue system is used to understand the to measure the metrics like total number of calls, and quality of the call that is being handled by the representative, quality of the call, and number of complaints related to the number of complaints. Suppose, let's say, see, when you actually receive a complaint on a broadband and everything, right? So you raise a complaint with respect to, the whether your modem is not working or a LAN cable is disconnected. So all these kind of complaints, they want to monitor what kind of complaint it is and how soon. I mean, the resolving time to. I mean, when I say resolving time, it's basically when the customer raise the complaint and your SLA is 24 hours. So within that 24 hours, you are able to resolve it or not. So how many number of complaints have actually crossed the SLA, what you have actually promised to the customer, and what kind of complaints that you are receiving from a commercial customers and all those things. So this is more about the call related metrics which are there. So you can say that there were two transactional systems from where we were integrating the data, and we've actually built a two data marts. One is related to the revenue, another is related to the call metrics. So call and complaint metrics, you can say. Okay, and this system is also used to measure the performance of the call representatives who are handling the calls. So this is what is a data flow. You can probably say that when you go to the face-to-face interviews, you can probably, they might give you, pen and paper. So at that time, you can probably draw a diagram, something like this, and explain them clearly. And then you can start, what did you do as an ETL tester? You can say that as an ETL tester, I have validated the data from transactional system and the staging database, and from staging database to ODS, and validated the data between the ODS and the two different data marts. And you could also say that here the ETL Informatica is used as an ETL tool, and BI tool, whatever the BI tool that you are comfortable with. I think we discussed about the OBIE. So you can say that OBIE is being used as a BI tool. And I'm also involved as a ETL and the BI tester in validating the reports and the dashboards. That's what you can explain when you see that. So basically, as an ETL tester, again, I mean, as a senior data warehousing tester, so what did you do and what are your responsibilities? So generally, the project responsibilities doesn't changes from one project to other projects. It's all about the data and the number of tables, the architecture of the project, or the technology that is used in the project will vary when you do that. So first one, when you say about the responsibilities, you can say that I've been involved in preparing the test plan and test cases and
Karthik, one quick question. Before your rather design right sales and revenue side, so I prepared like I'm working for a marketing department, like that is the data coming from like a um, campaigns data. So uh, so that can we add some points in that sales and the revenue side?
okay. See, the campaign related data, for a campaign management, you actually have a different things. There are campaign management like Adobe CQ5. Campaign management running where? Where are you running your campaigns? That information you haven't mentioned in the project. So what I understand from this, I just explained. So where do you have these things? Advertising the arm of time, Warner Cable offers. Okay, even that also you can manage. Campaign
Yes,
manage.
see, my husband is working for marketing department, so I got some points from him. I added like campaigns data like evergreens and which campaign is more effectively works and
Yeah, that you can
other
integrate. Basically, for a campaign management on the Siebel side, they use one tool. I'm not getting that. There are tools like Adobe CQ5, not Adobe CQ5,
and
Eloqua.
you know like Unica and Aprimo systems,
Yeah, yeah,
those are vendor management systems. So those data captures from them and data is dropped into flat files. That's what I so my previous project I want to explain them. So,
yeah. Okay, so even you can do that. Yes, Unica, IBM Unica, right? Yeah, it's
yes.
Unica. Yes, Unica product is actually used as a campaign management. So yeah, in that case, what you can do is you can tell them like Unica team was actually Unica was used as a campaign management tool where they were actually running a different campaigns, commercial and paid campaigns and the free campaigns across the web and everything. And from that Unica team, we used to actually receive the data in the form of a flat files or a delimited flat files. And you can say that, and that flat file data is actually being integrated into the staging area. And each flat file is actually being archived. Okay, you can say that this is your flat file extraction. You have received a flat files on the Unix server, and from there you have loaded the data into staging. So if you'd like to maintain the, the basically the, if you'd like to maintain the history for it, you can have an ODS, or you can directly say that that data is being integrated into a marketing data mart. So marketing team wanted to analyze how the campaigns are effective or not, whether you can say that there was a separate data mart which we actually built, and I've even involved in as part of this marketing building data marts validation. So this is how you can say, and on top of this, again, the OBIE is being used as a team, and high level marketing team was actually involved in analyzing the data through this. So you can always, create such a flow and then explain them. So ultimately, when you say an ETL or when you say an ETL, when you talk about a warehouse, ultimately that has to be used by any of the reporting tool. Suppose if your project is not a warehouse project, it is just that the data integration project. Assume that even you are also running a different campaigns from the different vendors. At the end of the day, they actually send all the campaign related data through a flat files, and you want to integrate that campaign related data into your Unica system first, then into a warehouse. Let's say here also the Informatica is being used. You can also work as an ETL tester here as well. So in integrating the data from into an Unica system. So this is called as an inbound process, and this is called as an outbound process. So from the Unica, you're actually getting the data and building a data mart. This is called as an outbound, and this is an inbound. Into the Unica system itself you're loading. So even that also an ETL activity. So if you're actually your project is a warehouse, you have to say that how it is being used. And if it is an inbound process also, you can also tell that we used to validate the data between this and then the Unica system as well. That way also you can explain.
For from staging area to ODS also, data is loading.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like if you have to do that from the staging, there will be a different types of validations which will be there, which you have to perform and then load the data.
Uh, from ODS area, any cleansing, any modifications is required for any business requirement like.
See, it depends on the way how you actually designed by the developer. It's more that as an ETL tester, when you're working, right, we understand that source to target column mapping sheet and whatever the different kind of a validation rules that are applied, you'll understand that validation rules and convert them into a, you'll understand that validation rules and convert them into an SQL query to validate. So in general, when you move the data from a transactional system to the staging area, it's just a strike pull. Pull the data from here and then load into the staging. And from staging to ODS, when we do, we'll apply the transformations and then the cleansing and all those things. Then we load it into the ODS. And from ODS, when you're loading the data into a data mart or a data warehouse, so here we'll actually aggregate the data according to your dimensions. Here we'll separate the data into a SAD type 1, type 2, type 3 or whatever, and then the fact tables. So it depends. Sometimes we even transform the data when we are moving the data from OLTP to staging. So there is no hard and force rule that you have to perform the validations here only when you are moving from staging to ODS. So at the end of the day, how the developer has designed the ETL flow, and according to that ETL flow, we have to test it.
Okay. For in that testing period, if we need any additional information, then we can coordinate with the BS and users, Karthik.
Not the business users directly. You can always go back to BA to understand the requirement, and you can always go back to your developer also to understand any of the document is not clear what you want to understand, not the business users. But if you're working in a Scrum model or an Agile model, probably you might even get in touch with the business users. But in the case of a waterfall model, the visibility in terms of a business users and all maybe a little less, but since you're working on an on-site project, yeah, there might be, yes, you can say that, yeah, I used to also interact with the business user to understand their views in terms of a testing or something.
Okay, mainly when we are testing, if I need more information, if they suppose they are not give proper document, that way we can coordinate with the developers and the team lead.
Yeah, that is always there. I mean, you need to have a coordination between the you need to have a coordination and you keep checking with them about anything is not clear or any document is not available in the shared folder and all those. Right? Okay.
Right.
Okay. So the next one about the when you talk about your roles and responsibilities as an ETL tester. So what we do is we say that we'll prepare a test plan, test cases, and before that, understanding the requirements, technical design document, understanding the requirements, understanding the requirements from the BRD technical design document and the STM source to target column mapping sheet and all those things. I hope you know what you mean by STM. So data mapping sheet or a source to target column mapping sheet. We'll prepare the test cases and the test plan and execution of test cases and comparing the actual results versus the expected results and the writing queries to validate the data, and then comment I mean experience I mean using the HP quality center for defect tracking. I mean tracking the defects using a HP quality center, that you can say tracking the defects using the HP quality center and generating a test reports. See, the test reports are and communicating with all the stakeholders. Test reports are nothing but in a testing phase when it is happening. As an ETL tester will generate reports basically saying that how many test cases are completed, how many are passed, how many are failed. So some simple pie chart kind of a test report they generate and they send on a weekly basis to the all the stakeholders like a project managers and then the BAs and everybody. So they say that, okay, this much percentage of this is done. And these test cases are also being executed in the multiple cycles. And once the defect is fixed, again, retesting the defects, retesting the defects which are being fixed. And all these are all the general, uh, the general responsibilities as a ETL tester which you perform. So you can say that these are all the general validations, and also you can say since you're going in as a 6-year-old, also helping the or doing a peer review for a I mean peer review. You can also add it as a point. So these are all the general project responsibilities. What you actually perform as a senior ETL tester or an ETL tester, what you could say. So
Okay.
so once if you explain this thing, then probably they'll start about the technical things like how do we go on to the technical side. So under that, if you see the we discussed two things, and then the next one is about the common defects. See, the defects mainly that you occur is the mismatch of a data. So suppose let's say. Uh, as per OLTP system, your revenue for a January month is $210 million, and but when it has actually flown to the warehouse, it is actually showing it as some less amount. So mismatch of the data mainly between a transactional system and a warehouse because of the OLTPs and duplicate records issue what we actually see, that is a common issue what we encounter, duplicate issue in the target tables. And the null values basically in the testing environment, null values, suppose the data is actually present in the transactional system, but because of the mapping linking, I mean the developers forgot to link it, or they didn't link it properly, or because of the data conversion issues, data is being loaded as a null value. And more often when we refer the workflow monitor logs and everything, you can say that we used to find out the unique constraint violation issues. uh, Unique constraint violation issues, mainly there were a lot of unique constraint violation issues, and validation of data in SCDs. I mean, when you say defects in the SCDs, it's basically even though there is no change in the data, ETL was inserting another record because of the MD5 issues. Um, so all those things, I mean, that is called as your SCD issues and validations. You can say that mismatch of the data, duplicates, unique constraint violation issue, and also multiple match issue in the lookup. See, when you actually match the data in the lookup, there will be a multiple values. If the multiple values are qualified by it, it will actually pick up a random value. So you can say that it was picking up a random value, but when we write a query, it was returning both the records. In case of Informatica, it was giving only one record and only one record was being loaded. And because of the multiple match in the lookup, we used to get the count validation issues and all those things that you can say that.
Okay.
So these are all the general defects what you come across, and you can also refer I mean, these are all the general issues, and you can also say that in your responsibilities, basically the which scheduler is being used, you can say that maybe in your ETL project, all the workflows are scheduled using Informatica. Informatica scheduler only you can say, because they might ask you like which type of a scheduler you have used and all those things. So you can say that we have used Informatica scheduler and some of the jobs were triggered from the Unix, that you can say that. And you can also say that I used to also monitor the workflows in the workflow monitor for errors in the testing environment and all those things. Okay. When we talk about
Part, for scheduling part, ETL also developer also, sorry, tester also involved that phase, Karthik, scheduling part.
no, tester is not actually involved in scheduling the workflows, but I'm saying that for monitoring. Suppose let's say if the workflow is scheduled at 3 a.m. I mean or 3 p.m. So whether that at 3 p.m. it is being triggered or not, that you need to validate, right? So that's the valid.
Okay. For validation wise,
Yeah.
okay. And for workflows also, is it like a write access, like a execute access?
Yeah, some projects they'll give it, some projects they'll not give it. Some projects will schedule it, and whenever the workflow is scheduled, according to
Okay.
that, you need to monitor and then do it. So basically, that's about your comfort. I mean, since you already know, you can still say that yes, I have an experience of in one of the project there was a execute access. We used to run, we used to execute it on our own and then validating the data. That's what you can say.
Okay. And let's say data is like suppose huge data is coming. They are sending like multiple files. Uh, Developer create like a indirect method, and that phase how we can validate normally.
See, it's all about when you're receiving a multiple files, it's all that you have to merge all the files into one single file and validate the data. There is no other way.
We can use like a union all
See,
and validate.
on the flat file, you can't use a union all. So obviously, so you can merge all the files into one single file and load that single file into a table and validate the data.
Okay, for normally validating wise, can we use like a WC minus L count wise? Then
That is to
can we
understand.
validate?
That is to just to understand the count of records across the files. But if you have to validate the data, obviously that data should be available in either in the form of a file, in a form of a merged file, or in the form of a table. Then only you can do that. Otherwise, you can't do that, right?
Right. Suppose like everyday file is loading into history table. Like every day we need to change the file name, or how normally the process.
I don't understand. What is your requirement?
Uh, uh, s- See, every day is data is coming from flat file, Karthik. So in that scenario, we need to like parameterize it, like how to say, param files, right? Parameterized, like we give the everyday value, and how it is like normally validate.
Okay, so your question is maybe, you're receiving the data in the form of a same file every day. You mean to say the same file name or a different file name?
Yeah, but it's the different file name. But
Okay, if it is a different file and you want to capture that, then in that case you have to go for an indirect method. Direct method will not work. So the validation is direct method, you can't use it. Suppose let's say you are receiving a file a.txt and tomorrow b.txt, another day c.txt. So that file name, if you want to pass it as a parameter, yes, I think you can pass it as a parameter. But in generally, it's a better way to go for an indirect method and and
okay,
keep that file in the normal list file and process the data. That's how you can do.
okay.
All right, so these are the, you can say, the mismatch of the data. And I was thinking, I mean, like, the in the ETL testing, you can also say that I'm experienced in the smoke testing, functional testing, and then the regression testing and all the type of testing. That also you can explain. Smoke testing, functional testing, and regression testing. Let's say the performance.
Just give me just only one example, like regression testing part, which is like a previous project, like a Time Warner cable. Just I did make a regression testing on that scenario. Like maybe if they can ask.
Okay. So the reason, like, how you can do that as a regression testing is, suppose, let's say, you can say that we had a table called as a call metric sum, and this call metric sum table was existing with some 10 facts and 10 facts and some 6 dimensions which were present. And in one of the change request, we actually added some in one of the change requests, we added some five metrics to this table. So what regression testing I have done is, before the release, I have taken the backup of this table, and after the release, I actually validated the data between the backup table and the data which is loaded newly in this table for these 10 fact columns and the 6 dimension columns. So that is called as a regression testing. Regression is more like, validating the old versus validating what is new in the table. So ideally, the even though you added a 5 metrics to that table, the existing data for a 10 fact table should not be modified. I mean, the 10 fact values shouldn't have been modified. So that is the way of regression testing. So whenever there is an enhancement which is happening on any table, so you need to take the backup of the old table and then validate the data between a backup table and the new data that is being loaded. So that way you can say that the regression testing I have performed.
Okay, okay.
Right. Okay. So this is about the common defects, and when you talk about the conflicts with the developers and how do you handle them, see, most of the time the conflicts with the developers happens saying that even though you are able to replicate the defect in the testing environment, they say that in the development environment it is working fine, I don't have any issues, my code is working fine. So they say that. So this kind of a conflict generally happens, and also updating the documents. Most of the times developers are very reluctant to the update the documents or capture the information very clearly in the developer, so that it will be very easier for a testers to understand. You'll always have a conflicts even in understanding the documents and asking them to update again and again. So these kind of a conflicts generally you see in the projects. When you talk about how do you handle these kind of things, so basically whenever you have a conflict with a document, generally what the testers do is they raise a document related defect saying that, okay, this document is not properly updated. So you raise the document related defect and then assign to them. So basically they will act on it and then update the document properly and then give it back to you. So when it comes to the replicating it in the development environment, so they're not able to replicate it and all. So probably you have to give them certain scenario saying that, okay, this is what is the input I have used and I have fired this query. This data is written by the detailed steps basically, which will actually help them to the replicate that kind of scenario in the development environment. So to handle that kind of a scenario, we'll actually give the 2 to 3 scenarios with the detailed steps and asking them to replicate the defect so that they can understand. Or if required, so you can also check in the development with the same scenarios, the same queries and everything, whether that information is being reflected or not. So this way you can tell the conflicts and then how did you handle them. So that is one way of explaining.
Yeah.
And when you talk about the complex mapping that you have tested, so you can always say that the complex mapping is something that, I mean, generally they say, if they say that the complex mapping which you have tested, basically you can say that I have written a very complex query with inline views by converting all the maplets and the different type of lookups into a bigger query, and which was around some 500 lines of a query which I have written to validate the data. So why it has become a 500 lines of a query? You can say that there were different maplets and the complex expression logics were used in the mapping, and which actually costed us in creating a 500 lines of a query. And majorly we have used all the Oracle functions, and I mean all the Informatica functions, decoded Informatica functions, and then you can say that different types of inline views and everything we have used and created a query to validate the data. So this was something that which I found it challenging, and you can say that also. And there was another scenario wherein the jobs were scheduled in the Unix, and we had to view the cron tab for a scheduling and all those things, something like that. You can say, we had to use a cron tab for a verification of a job schedule and everything. That was also the challenging part from my end to test it, something like that. So you just have to convince them saying that the mapping was complex and the query which I have recreated is complex because it was having a lot of maplets, lot of lookups, lot of expressions, and then the different set of joiners and the unions are being used, and for a complex requirement, and that's why we have created it. Yeah.
For like views and the materialized views also, which scenarios normally we tested, Karthik? Materialized views.
Okay. Materialized views are something, basically in the ETL environment, it may not be used, but in the BI environment, you can say that in one of our projects, the materialized view was being used as a source in a BI tool, BI or a reporting tool, because there was a complex analysis which was performed on the high volume tables. So what they have did is they have actually created a materialized view for that complex query, and BI was actually reading the data from a materialized view, so to improve the performance part of it. So materialized view was used in the to make the complex query as a easy in case of one of the scenario that you can explain.
Okay. As a tester, I can test it like a materialized view, like how it is performed.
No, not necessary, but you can always compare the data between a table and a report, not the materialized view. But materialized view also you can test, but you need to understand a lot of depth in it, like basically. But you don't need to really. You can say that we were actually validating a data between a base table and the report, but there was a materialized view which was involved to improve the performance. That's what you can say.
Okay. And Karthik, what about like a PL SQL, like procedures, functions, triggers, like anything I need to.
Okay. So PL/SQL procedures, functions, and all are not required for a the ETL tester. You can say that I was completely involved in the the this side of it. Basically the SQL side only, and I don't have experience on the PL/SQL side. But PL/SQL is not required for a tester.
Okay, okay. And can you give me some example like agile methodology, how it is like sprints are dividing like a 15-day sprint, like
Okay. Okay. So the agile methodology is like, as you know, like these are the project deliverable models, right? So project process life cycles. Okay. So most of the projects are driven in the waterfall model or agile model. In agile, you have a different frameworks like agile Scrum, agile something. I don't know. I forgot that. Uh,
Scrum Master, like
agile is
user
a
story.
Scrum and Kinbana something. Okay. Basically, most of the time, the Scrum framework is being used in agile projects. Okay. When you say that when you're working in a Scrum project, so there will be a sprint. It's actually for each and every project deliverable, there will be one sprint. Okay. So in that sprint, we actually implement one or two change requests and then we validate them. So each sprint will comprises of 45 to 60 days. When somebody asks you about do you have experience in Agile, yes, you can say that, yeah, I worked in an Agile project and we used to use the Scrum model. And there was we used to define the sprints for 45 to 60 days and for a specific requirements. And the developers used to develop it and then we used to develop the test cases within a span of a time and we used to execute it and then move it to the production. So each sprint was about 60 days and we executed the project in the sprint model only because the business users were not sure about the requirements. That's why they've used this model for a delivery of that project.
Okay.
Right. HPQC and ALM, I would say you have to refer the any videos or something for that. If you come across any, we will actually send you those videos. But because we do not have that QC and ALM installed in our machines to show you. But generally, the ALM and QC are used to capture the requirements, and the requirements will be captured in it. And at the same time, ALM is also used for a defect tracking. It's to rise the defect and assign the defect to a developer, and developer resolves it and then the assign it back to the tester. When you're rising a defect, you can attach the screenshot and you can add a comments. All these things can be done on the HPALM. So it's all about the just checking that basically the verification of and the tracking of the defects and generating a test reports and everything. That is, and when you want to define, you can also export all the defects from the quality center or an ALM into an Excel, and from Excel again you can import all those defects into a quality center. All these things can be done using a ALM or a quality center. Quality center was an older version, and the new version now, which they're calling it as a ALM, which is like a application lifecycle management. I think some version 12 or something which is there in the market. You can just know what is the version.
Okay. Um, for ETL testing, BI related, like any testing we involve to do, I think, like as a ETL tester.
I think we already discussed in one of the ETL classes, like how the OBE testing will be performed. The way how you do the ETL testing, even the BI testing is also done for validation of the reports and validation of the data in the facts and dimension. I mean, validation of the reports and validation of prompts on the BI reports, validation of the filters of the BI reports and everything. So if you do not have, probably I'll ask the team to send you the video. You can go through that video and then understand how the BI testing is actually performed.
Okay, please.
Okay. So when you talk about the incremental and historical load, probably you can refer to the one of the old video about how the historical data load testing is done and the incremental data load testing is done and all.
Oh, okay, okay, Karthik. Yes, I have that video.
Yeah. So when you talk about the healthcare insurance, see the healthcare insurance is all about basically any company actually offer a policy to a customer like us. We take a health insurance and then once you actually admit to the hospital, you basically take a cashless claim or you pay the money from your pocket and you actually claim it. That's the general thing. When you talk about any insurance, you have two types of modules. One is like a policy, another is like a claim, and there is another module which you call it as a billing. Okay. So what I see from your resume is that about the completely on the claim side. So it is about the processing of the claims from the different vendors and all those things. So that is what which you see on the Cardinal Health. Okay. So you can say that Cardinal Health was a claim processing company where they used to offer the policies from the different vendors, and we basically used to validate the data for all the claims, validations, and all those things. So basically, they'll not go in detail, for older projects, but you need to know what kind of fact tables that were there and what tables, what kind of dimension tables were there. So in case of an insurance project, generally we'll have a claim dimension, claimant dimension, and then you'll also have a vendor dimension from which vendor you have received the claim, and what type of a claim type is another dimension. So all these type of a claims were there, and when somebody asks you like what kind of fact tables were there, you can say that the fact tables like accident year fact and lost transaction fact. So all these were the different types of fact tables which were there. And you can say that again, I was involved in validating the data across from the transactional system to the warehouse using a SQL query, and you can say whatever the database that is being used for doing that. That way you can explain them. I mean, when you talk about the claims and all those. So policy, you if you look at your project, you talked about more claims, and you can say the different types of claims we use to validate the data from the different vendors. So that's what you can explain.
Okay. For my recent project, I mentioned Time Warner cabling, right? So, am I need to add like I work for marketing department.
I already said that, right? So if you want to add that point, you probably have to use this data flow and explain them. Okay, this is also one of the process or module where I actually involved in validating the data.
No, no. In the resume, can I add that point?
Yeah, you can add it. I mean, you can say that validated the campaign management data from Unica with the help of an SQL queries, and also validated the data, I mean, visualization graphs and charts on the OBIE for a marketing managers and marketing vice presidents and all those things that you can.
Okay.
All right.